Welcome back to the Casting Cost CEDH podcast. I'm Chase, and today I'm covering the CEDH Win a Foil Cradle event that took place this past weekend with 154 players. Now, before I begin with this, let's kind of talk about a few things that are going on for the channel. So on Monday's episode of the podcast, we announced that we have finally launched our Patreon. And not only that, we are partnering with Critical EDH for the month of October for their league. So anyone that joins our Patreon, starting at the $3 entry level, has access to Critical's league for the month of October. And if you haven't joined that yet, please do so and have an opportunity to compete against some of the best in our space. So if you would, go ahead, hop on over there. Just go ahead and do that. It's only $3. Or if you want to support them directly or any of the other channels that are associated with the month of October for their league, go ahead and support them as well. I've also kind of been open about some life changes that are going on. As far as on Monday's episode of the podcast, Blake did announce that he had a baby. So there are some big changes for the channel, not just in the growth that we are trying to make, but in our lives personally. So I'm going to kind of address a little bit of that at the moment as well. I think because of that, my schedule also getting a little bit hectic, and then also this weekend being the cookout, first and foremost, we probably won't have another gameplay coming out this weekend. And our hope is we're about to get back on track with that. And I think that this is where I'm going to announce kind of our upcoming schedule. So next week's episode, I think, will be about the same as far as when we release the podcast episode on Monday. Wednesday, we will continue to release the tournament breakdowns. And then the following week, that's whenever I think things are going to change. So new schedule, based on what Blake and I have talked about, is going to be Wednesdays is going to be tournament breakdowns like we have been doing. Fridays, we will release the podcast episode. And then on Sundays, we will release the gameplay. And if that doesn't work out, we're always open to suggestions on what you all want. So that's kind of a very brief rundown of things and trying to really figure out what our schedule is looking like now that we have some life changes going on and things like that. So bear with us. These next couple of weeks might be a little bit off, but our hope is that it ends up being a better schedule for the two of us, and that means we can put out a better quality product and video for you all. So there's the changes. Join our Patreon, join the league, and as always, like and subscribe. There's still like around 80-something% of people not subscribed to the channel. And we're going to keep making an announcement about that until that changes. Even if it only gets us to like 75%. Oh well. Like and subscribe. Anyway, that is not the focus of today. Today's focus is we are breaking down the top 16 from the CEDH Win a Foil Cradle event that had 154 players in Illinois. Now, this is an event that we actually had mentioned a couple of times on the channel, as there have been some players that we've played against at game nights down in Tennessee that were the ones that their friend was putting this event together. And obviously it was pretty successful. Over 150 players over the course of the weekend. It was the largest event for this past weekend. So with that being said, let's go on ahead and start getting into this top 16. In 16th place, we have Jacob Sherman on Blue Farm. So from what I can tell, a little bit, what we've kind of started seeing as far as like kind of this higher creature count with a focus on things like Fairy Mastermind and Lotho, Tataru Taru, Professional Facebreaker. I feel like in a list where we've seen this, we've also seen Downey, but I'm not seeing Downey in the 99 here. I think maybe even opting to just, in place of Downey, just have the Bergie for additional mana. I'm assuming with a higher count in the red creatures, there's probably going to be some kind of flare of duplication and things like that. So let's kind of take a look at our sorceries and our instances. Okay, a little bit higher with the red, including that Rite of Flame and the Jessica as well. Not that those are uncommon cards to see in Blue Farm. We're definitely starting to see more and more of those being picked up. But let's keep going. Still pretty high on the interaction package from what I could tell. I wonder if they're on Snapback. I see the offer. Let's see. There's Rain of Filth. Yep. There's the Flare Duplication. I don't think I see this. Oh, nope. It's right there. Cool. So they're also on the Flare an offer you can't refuse, and Snapback, kind of almost utilizing those two as a ritual. So that's kind of cool to see here. Obviously, the Born Upon the Wind, Ad Naus, Brain Freeze, extra turn spell, the traditional stuff you're going to see in a blue farm list. Opting to run no One Ring and no Grinding Station. So even though it looks like we are on Necropotence, not going like super, super aggressive with Grinding Station lines or even trying to accrue more value through the One Ring. So this looks like pretty close to what like a traditional blue farm list that we've really seen, other than like, where we've seen a lot of variations kind of popping up here and there. This one is seems a lot more streamlined. Enchantments, nothing too crazy. Fish, Underworld Breach, Necropotence, Rhystic, Smothering Tithe, and 27 lands. We've seen some lists starting to pick up the Starting Town. This one is on Spire of Industry. I don't think that's a bad call, especially since, even though I think I addressed this last time, 11, as far as like a raw artifact count, that's a little bit low for me, or feeling comfortable in wanting to run Spire of Industry. But between the 11 artifacts that it has here, the Smothering Tithe, going back up here, the Tataru Taru, the Lotho, the Esper Sentinel, and so on, that actually does increase your count. And the Professional Facebreaker, it does increase that count to ensure that land is always going to be turned on. So, yep, seems like blue farm. So congratulations, Jacob, with a record of 2, 1, and 3. In 15th place, we have Lucas Cumberland, also on blue farm, with a notable difference right away in a couple things. One, they're actually running the Planeswalker Teferi, the basically a silence effect, stapled onto it. So that's kind of cool to see here. You don't see blue farm running that a lot. You're typically going to see that in things like Sisay, Atraxa, Tivit sometimes, for the Displacer Kitten line, things like that. But seeing it in here, maybe people are just trying to jam more and more silence effects to either get out of the mid-range or be able to win more on top of the flash meta and things like that. So let's kind of keep going. This one I thought was really interesting, seeing Snapcaster. I have played Snapcaster in my TNT build through doing Gifts Ungiven lines within it. But again, that's not a card you typically see within blue farm. Phantasmal Image, card we haven't really seen in quite a while, I feel like, in blue farm. Maybe just trying to, either copy a Bowmaster, copy an Esper Sentinel, other value pieces. Kind of same thing with the Mockingbird here. So that's kind of cool to see just, this resurgence in a way of all these different copy effects. I feel like Kennen is the deck that's made the most use out of that. So, I guess maybe this pilot's trying to pick up on some of those tools and not just copying the OBM or those. They're also on the Mayhem Devil tech. So maybe even doubling down on Mayhem Devil and just being able to do some stuff there. That's kind of cool. Just pieces that these two in particular you don't really see as much in this deck anymore. And then the Mayhem Devil starting to pop up more and more in this list overall. No Ranger Captain, but I think that's fine, especially if they're already on this Teferi as a silence effect, and might be even a little bit easier to hit, especially you don't want, I think some people make the argument for cutting Ranger Captain at times because of the double white pips whenever you already have Grand Abolisher that's like that too. Teferi might be slightly easier to get out, but the fact that Ranger Captain is a creature and might be harder to counter, to each their own. Let's kind of keep going with this. Okay, so seeing that Snapcaster there, seeing the Reanimate here, I'm going to assume that there is some kind of Gifts Ungiven line outside of the Breach pile where you can still possibly do Savines or Reanimate, but do Snapcaster, Thassa's Oracle, and then either Attain the Pact or Demonic Consultation. That's probably what that's there for. They're on two different will effects. From what I can tell, a little bit lower on red, so maybe not on the flare of duplication. Let's kind of keep going. Let's see. Slightly less instances than the previous one. I know the other one I didn't mention it, but it was on Reign of Filth. This one is not. Extra turn stuff, Born Upon the Wind. Pretty standard interaction package. That is where they're on the intuition and the gifts I'm given there. It almost makes sense. Like if you're gonna play gifts, like give yourself multiple options, like how in TNT it is either this line with the Snapcaster that people have played, or just doing the Hazel's Devoted Druid combo type stuff. Again, this allows you to be a little bit more flexible. You can either go for the pieces for the breach line, or you can go for this kind of reanimation line for a Thassa's Win. So, especially if you're already protected and under a silence effect, you might as well go for that instead of just trying to close out with whatever loop. That is if it gets stopped. Artifact count. This is kind of cool. They're very high on the artifact count, and it almost looks like they're trying to prepare for against like Rogthras and Sisay and Kennen and things like that by being able to run this curse totem. So that's kind of cool here, seeing like a stacks piece within blue form. Again, that's like these pieces, especially in like Esper Shell, you typically think of seeing these more in like Tivit, but it's cool that Pilot for blue form started trying to run that. It's kind of different here, but really high on the artifact count. Let's look at the enchantments. Yep, same enchantments. Pretty standard package. One less land. Now this is where things I think are a little bit different. So they are on Homeward Path and Prismatic Vista. So it means they're on at least one basic. Looks like they're choosing the Snow-Covered Island. Probably just opting for blue as the more important color. The Homeward Path, I wonder what that would be used for. Is it creature? Is it only restricted to creatures? Yeah, it's only restricted to creatures. That's interesting. It's just interesting because it's not a piece you typically see in these kind of lists. Like, most lists that I think would even run Homeward Path are going to be like the Kennen builds that play like the Perplexing Chimera and things like that. That's kind of fallen out of favor. So it's kind of cool to see that in this, but I'd like to know more of what's kind of going on as to why that's in there. If you know what's in there, drop it down in the comments below and let me know. So other than that, congratulations on 15th place with a record of 2, 1, and 3. Okay, so in 14th place, we have Ben Roseberry on VV, a commander we haven't really seen that much here recently. I feel like we've mostly seen a lot of Ral pop up, and yeah, VV still pops up from time to time, so you gotta respect the deck, but let's see what they got going on here. This is like, I think this almost feels like the Too Deep list to some extent, because they're on both the Niv Mizzets. They have the Quicksilver Elemental, the Reality Chip, Nezahal. That's pretty cool. So I feel like what we've seen a lot with more recent VV lists is like most of the creature package is just red. A lot of people have opted to cut the Quicksilver, and even the Niv Mizzets at times. Nezahal not really being a creature that we've seen a lot of play in VV in particular, but I think that's kind of cool. Harmonic Prodigy and Tandem Lookout being able to help with whatever you're trying to do with VV, either doubling the triggers or when this acting as another curiosity effect, so that's kind of cool as well. Stormkilling Artist, I'm going to assume, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that they've included pieces to like do infinite combos with Stormkilling Artists, like the I think it's Haze of Rage, where you could do the buyback and it has Storm and you can make infinite treasures? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what they got. Let's look at our sorceries and our instances. No, I don't think so, because I think that one in particular is a storm card. That's a sorcery, so nothing right there. Extra turn spells, bunch of draw cards. Anger of the Gods. That's a card you haven't really seen in quite some time. But I guess if your biggest thing is just like being able to kill off a lot of dorks or like low to the ground creatures, or maybe to some extent even being able to control the like a blue farm player, like all the creatures that are accruing value, that makes sense because it's everything else is so low CMC. It would be really funny to see this. I put this in my VV build, but Dragonstorm is kind of funny at times. If you produce enough mana and then you just Dragonstorm and get both Niv Mizzets onto the battlefield, they opted not to do that for just lesser shenanigans and probably taking it a little bit more seriously. But let's keep going on. Let's see what else they got. Looks like super interactive. I'm assuming some ways kind of, I don't know, are you able to gut shot or lava dart loop within this? I know that's kind of some stuff you typically would do with Ral, but I don't know if it says easy to do that within VV or not. Dizzy spell acting as almost a tutor for curiosity specifically in the list, because obviously it doesn't really work well with what VV is trying to do unless you just need to cast a spell, but the transmutability, being able to just go and grab a curiosity and then attach, that's pretty good. Yeah, a lot of interaction, even choosing to run strict serenade, so that's kind of cool in this. Mug salvage, bolt bend, misdirection, submerge, commandeer, a lot of free interaction pieces too. In the artifacts, some people, I've seen some lists try to run like almost a Cheerios build, but I think that this is the right way to do it. Like, just utilize, like, build it around getting your fast mana rocks out, have another value engine here, Sensei's top, being able to do stuff, help kind of be more selective in what you want off the top. So I think that's good. The enchantment package, yeah. Sigil Sleep. Oh, okay. That kind of, you can almost kind of use that in a way as like a pseudo board wipe. So that's kind of cool. Kind of helps to push through if you need to. That's cool. Curiosity, Mystic Remora, Artist Talent, Counterbalance in here, just because you have really good synergies with the top. Ophidian Eye, Ristic Study. Yeah, that's solid. Kind of surprised there's no Breach, but I think that if they're trying to like storm off or see a bunch of cards, things like that anyway, and they're actually going a little bit bigger with the creatures for additional value, you might not need Breach in a list like this. Still would be nice to see though. 24 lands, which seems good. I mean, these Izzet Storm decks, they're trying to pop off some. It's like we've talked about before. Ral sometimes is running like 14 lands in total, so I think 24 is a good spot to be in, especially because of the creature package. And things like that. You want to ensure that if that's kind of your game plan with this, that you have enough lands to do that, not just solely depend on like storming off and just making the mana with VV. So you always got to have the lands there with this particular build for it. But I mean, other than that, like, for the most part, everything looks pretty cool. I like, me personally, if I were playing VV, this is probably closer to the build that I'd like for it. That's just what I feel comfortable with, so I think it's cool that it placed in the top 16 here. So congratulations, Ben, on 14th place with a record of 2, 1, and 3. In 13th place, we have Will Wilson Ninja with the Master of Keys. So I really wish that Blake was here with me right now in order to actually explain more of what this deck, since he is our resident Esper player. But let's kind of take a look at things. So with the Master of Keys, you're kind of utilizing this, my understanding of it at least, is you're kind of more so utilizing this as a Esper, like Underworld Breach type deck. So I'm assuming that we're going to have, obviously, like, we have all these really good creatures throughout here. Even this Academy Rector, which I think is kind of interesting to see in this. I don't necessarily know what it would be used for, but we'll kind of check things out in a little bit. But yeah, just like, really good creatures that you want within Esper colors. Ledger Shredder, potentially, just to kind of continue fueling your graveyard, so that way you can utilize the Master Keys a little bit more. Fairy Mastermind we're seeing pop up everywhere, almost as even a combo piece. So it does kind of make me wonder whether or not like there's going to be something there with this. But just really good low to the ground Esper cards. So yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going with this. Okay, so all the good tutors for the most part. The Scheming Symmetry, this is a card that I'm like really on the fence about, but I mean, if they're running Opposition Agent, like it's fine, it's okay. I feel like the deck that has made this line a little bit more notorious is Glarb, and we haven't really seen it pop up too much here recently. But we're on Imp Seal, Reanimate, especially if we're doing graveyard stuff. Demonic Tutors, Savines, Yawgmoth's Will. I think that's all fine, being able to use the Yawgmoth's Will within these color pairs since you don't have access to Underworld Breach. So that's pretty cool. Looks like a lot of interaction still with this. All Valley. I don't think I really talked about the Valley Flood Caller, but I mean that's pretty much been a staple at this point. It's just that most pilots I don't think choose to run the actual combo, which is kind of interesting. And I guess what you could do is if you go into that combo, make infinite mana, be able to mill yourself out, return some kind of enchantment or anything like that through the master keys, then you could probably get Thassa's Oracle back, which is probably why they've included the Banishing Knack and the Retraction Helix here. Again, pieces that go really, really well with Valley Flood Caller. It's just most people, I feel like, have kind of opted not to run them for the past couple of months, but it's cool to see it in this list. Even running an Arcane Denial, that's crazy. Twin Cast. I'm wondering what they're going to use that for, because I feel like that's a piece you typically see in like some kind of Is It Storm deck and comboing with like Stormkiln Artist or something that can make use of copying spells and things like that. But in this, I don't know. A bunch of silence effects. I didn't even really talk about this, but they're on the silence. They're on Orm's Chant. Are they on all the pieces for this? Ranger Captain, Grand Abolisher, Voice of it. Yeah, they're pretty much on all the silence effects outside of Teferi that they can run too. So that's neat. No One Ring. A lot of enchantments. Monologue Tax. They've been watching That's a Good card. So, but it makes sense to be a little bit higher on the enchantment, especially if you kind of get to a point where you're forced to go more into the commander game plan. Then it makes sense to have these a little bit higher. Typically in this list, we're really only going to see like maybe 4 at times, but it's cool that they're on the Mirror Maid. I'm really actually kind of surprised they're not on like copy. Well, no, there it is. Copy enchantment, copy artifact potentially. The Necromancy is something that they can recur through the commander if they've completely milled themselves out through like doing that Valley Flood Caller loop that I was talking about earlier, and then be able to unearth this so that way they can actually reanimate the Thassa's Oracle. So I mean that's kind of cool. If they for some reason mess up, they can unearth the Necropotence and then make it to where they can't draw their card going into their next turn or whatever. So yeah, that's neat. But yeah, a lot of card draw, a lot of making extra mana, so on. Anything unique? We're on Phyrexian Tower. I'm sure that's being able to like sacrifice either some of your small pieces, or if you have enough mana and you need to mill yourself out a little bit more, you could probably sacrifice the Master Keys to this, so that way you can actually like do it again and mill more. So kind of a little bit of a flexible piece within this. So I like that inclusion there. Other than that, I mean, it's solid Esper Shell. So yeah, again, I wish Blake was here today for us to kind of talk about this a little bit more, but congratulations on 13th place with a record of 2, 1, and 3. All right, in 12th place, we have Joshua Patton, JP. It is still rocking Croc Thrasios. So this is one of the guys that we have played with, or we've kind of hung out with down at game nights, and I've seen him just crushing it on this deck here recently. So it's kind of cool to be able to cover this, and I'm hoping he drops it down in the comments what he's trying to do with this deck, because even as you could tell last week, I still don't know at times, because I know even in the comments from last week, like people were saying like that was the more turbo aggressive, like spell slinging, like, you know, just storming off build of this. This one, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong on this, JP, I feel like that this one plays a little bit slower from what I could tell in the creatures. Probably making up, you know, just trying to produce a lot of mana up and get into Thrasios activations. That's why I feel like I'm seeing like Stormkilling, the Seaborn Muse, VV, the Ashling, being able to utilize pieces like Harmonic Prodigy and maybe even Roaming Throne to like double down on the Croc triggers, things like that. Bergie, make additional mana, and during Vitality, make additional mana off your creatures, so on, so on. Professional Facebreaker, probably the backside of Bergie and the Facebreaker to kind of keep things going if you run out of gas, but you have cards in hand that you just pitch, or sacrificing treasures so that way you can exile cards off the top and just keep going with it. Yeah, what else we got in this list? Ways of kind of cheating creatures into play. That's huge strategy right now in a lot of the green-based decks. Just put things directly on the battlefield. You know, if this doesn't get countered, then this is what we're doing. We're sending this creature, and we're going to keep going with it. A lot of cantrips between this Crimson Wisp, or at least that's what the build was, what someone had pointed out last time was trying to do. So it looks like as far as cantrips, we have Crimson Wisp, we have the Might of the Meek, Veil of Summer, technically speaking, Manamorphose, so on. So I'm sure that the thing with this deck, it just produces a lot of mana, draws a bunch of cards, can probably burn out the table or bolt people. Like we have a Lightning Bolt and a Gut Shot here. I saw the Ewit, there's Spellseeker. I'm sure there's some kind of loop within this. Typically when we have been seeing that, that's usually through like a Displacer getting loop, but Josh is not on this. For that. Expedite, I forgot, as a cantrip. So those are all really cool pieces to see within this. I keep going back up here because I'm like, if they have enough mana, they just Fairy Mastermind. He doesn't have it in the list. Yeah, free, like it can be interactive, but if you notice, there's not a whole lot of interaction. Just bare minimum pieces, whatever it can kind of get away with, is what it really kind of looks like. It's focused on its game plan and just trying to pop off and make a bunch of mana, draw a bunch of cards, and probably burn the table out. So that's really cool. Enchantments, you know, obviously I don't compared to Rogthras, I don't even know if this deck would want to run a Song of Creation. It'd be kind of cool, especially if you're already playing like Professional Facebreaker and some pieces you can just like basically exile cards to kind of keep going. But I feel like this is a deck that actually wants to have more cards in hand. Because like you make a bunch of mana during your turn, but it's not like the Turbo Cradle decks where you can hold up that mana throughout everyone else's turn and be able to like just draw more cards. And I'm sure you can. I could be wrong in saying that. That's just kind of first impression looking at the deck. And again, this is a deck I'm not too familiar with. I've played against maybe a couple times against TJ, who is another guy that has been part of this group. And so yeah, this is a cool list. I think that Karkthras put in work and get in 12th place. That's awesome. So congratulations, JP, with a record of 2, 1, and 3. All right, in 11th place we have Corbin Bolding on Kinnan. So the first Kinnan list that we're seeing for this, let's kind of check it out. Let's see what they got going for them. Kind of looks like traditional Kinnan lists, you know, and more so like the older style of it. But from what I could tell on the creatures, like running Glen Elendra. No Void Winnower, but even we've noticed some lists dropping the Wandering Archaic. I still think that card is awesome. So it's really good in here. Having another clone effect seems good. Again, I made that comment earlier. It seems like Kinnan is the deck right now that makes the most use out of clones and takes the best advantage out of them, whether that's creatures or other permanents. So that's really cool. Just adding more and more clones in this. But yeah, creatures for the most part look pretty standard from what we've used to seeing with Kinnan. Let's see what else they got going for them. Again, standard sorcery package. We have these onto the battlefield tutors, and then we have these artifact tutors. And some people have chosen to run one over the other. They're choosing to run both. I think that's kind of a correct play, just being able to try to get that basalt monolith or even like a treasure vault or anything like that a lot faster. So seems good to me. Running Force of Vigor, and some lists run it, not all do. But I think that's really, it can prove to be a really strong card, especially if you get to the point in the game where you run in some dorks. You have this, you can kind of, slow people down a little bit by blowing up Smothering Tides or Rhystic Studies or anything like that. You might as well. So that's kind of cool there. I feel like the card that we often see in this slot between the two of them is probably like Commandeer, and it doesn't look like they're on Commandeer for this list. But still, I think we're getting to a point now where people are going to have to run more on the board interaction, whether that's blowing up enchantments and Rhystics or creature removal. So it is kind of cool to see that here. In the artifacts, yep, those are Kinnan artifacts. That's, I think, the simplest way to explain it. Enchantments. Okay, so they're on the copy artifact Mirror Maid. No copy enchantment, which I think is okay. The Psychic Possession. This is a card we've seen popping up a little bit more and more in Kinnan, and we've had some friends of the channel like testing this out as well. I'm going to give more credit to Paul Merle on this one, because he was already on this. So shout out to Paul there. So that's kind of cool to see this deck popping up a little bit more in Kinnan, especially since like everyone is trying to get over the top of just this draw meta, flash meta, mid-range hell, whatever you want to call it. I think this is a card for Kinnan that can really push the deck over the top of everyone else and just really make use of your mana on board without having to go too much into the Kinnan Flips plan. So that's cool. 25 lands. Let's see if there's anything. Nope. Seems good. I don't see anything that seems out of character for that. So yeah, this is cool. I like seeing this list on here with some of the more traditional pieces, with combining like the No Bad Cards variant of it as well. So congratulations, Corbin, with a record of 3-3. In 10th place, we have Jason Sommerfeld on Blue Farm. So from what I can tell already, there's some very clear differences between this and the other two lists that we were seeing, but let's kind of dive into it a little bit more. So from what I can tell, obviously they are a little bit higher on their red creature count, so they're probably on the Flare Duplication again. They have Delny here in the 99, and they're including Knuckles the Echidna. I feel like this is more of like a Matt Hayes, or like how Zach Adler's been kind of talking about, like almost this, like, I think he's mentioned it to Blake at one point in time, like almost this more like Mardu-esque build of Blue Farm, which is kind of cool. And you can see it right away within the creatures, like heavy and white. I mean, it still has the blue creatures, but your black between Lotho, the Bowmaster, and the Mayhem Devil make I think a tremendous difference in this build. So it is quite. I have to laugh every single time I see Knuckles, because I just feel like everyone hyped up Shadow, and not to downplay Shadow. Shadow's really good, but I think that this card got really overlooked outside of that just like win the game text, and that's not even what people are using it for. So it's just cool to see Knuckles there at the 99 as well. So let's kind of keep going with this. Again, like I said, a little bit higher on the red. You can kind of tell even how that last was, or the first list we had, they were running the Jessica's Will and the Rite of Flame. They're on the Rite of Flame and Wheel of Fortune through this. So it almost makes me wonder, are we going to see a grinding station within this? If we're making that many treasures, let's keep going. Let's find out. I feel like slightly lower on our interaction count, because they're at 28. The other lists I think have been like either 29 to 31. There's the Flare Duplication, so I think that's fine. Everything else seems pretty, right for what Blue Farm is and what it's trying to do, opting not to run Gifts Ungiven here, which I think is okay. I think that's a card that kind of comes in and out of lists at times, and it really depends on what you're trying to build. I feel like with some of the creatures that are in this, and like not running Demonic Betrayal, things like that, maybe a little bit lower on our blue sources. It kind of makes sense not to be a little bit more redundant with this. So I think intuition is just fine. Plus, it's one less to cast. Artifacts, bunch of rocks and Wishclaw Talisman. No One Ring, no Grinding Station either. So I was incorrect on that one. The enchantments. I actually really like this include of the Steel Enchantment. I am a big fan of maybe trying to almost make blue farm lists kind of how like Wrong Site can be, where it's just like you have all these copy effects or anything like that. In this case, utilizing a Still Enchantment to be able to just like take someone else's heuristic or value engine and being able to kind of like shut them out if this resolves. So that is cool. I do like seeing that in this. But outside of that, the enchantments are pretty standard for what we've seen so far today. And then 27 lands. I think the biggest thing that stands out right away is the inclusion of the City of Traders. And again, maybe that is where I was kind of saying, like on some people going into like this almost Mardu style of blue farm, like they're trying to go a little bit faster. They're trying to put their ramp or the value engines down, so on, so on. So maybe having City of Traders there in the 99 actually helps speed that game plan up a little bit more. So on that, congratulations, Jason, on 10th place with a record of 3-2-1. Okay, so this is the part of the video where I probably start butchering names, but so we have Abhi Sharma in 9th place on TNT. And right away what I kind of notice is that they are, well, I think this Weathered Wayfarer is kind of cool. You can actually go and get the Gaia's Cradle, whatever you want, but they are almost on like I guess what is now being called like the tree farm build of it, from what, and I haven't even seen that list, but I'm assuming that's what it is because it's heavier into the Thrasios plan. I see the Biomancer's familiar. I see like a cloud of fairies. It's almost trying to do like Turbo Cradle type stuff. We have Springheart Nantuko, the Auroral Breeze Caller. Just jamming a bunch of stuff. Okay, and so I'm Myco Spawn. I actually really like this list. I think that being able to make a bunch of mana right now, draw a bunch of cards, outside of decks like Sisay, the deck that I feel like everyone in my community knows me for. That's what these decks are trying to do right now. And it's proven to be a really solid game plan. And I almost feel like we might even see a little bit of a resurgence of TNT because of this build for it. But taking a lot of like some of the Rog Thrust tech or the Dog Thrust tech that's on the Turbo Cradle stuff, the Familiar, the Springheart, Aboro, they are actually going a little bit deeper and doing the Derevia Mill stuff, which I feel like is correct. Like if you're like some of these lists were running Derevi without a mill already, you might as well just include a mill and then you have an infinite combo and just draw out your deck anyway. Like it's so simple to assemble that, and most of these combos within this, because they're creature based, you might as well do it. I think some pilots have even opted to be off of the Seaborn Muse, but it's just an extra value piece and just be able to do shit during other players' turns. So I think that's cool. Sorceries. Wargate is something you typically see mostly within like just the Bant shells, but I mean, if this resolves, man, it is for a permanent. So, I mean, you can even just pay the 3 and go get your Gaia's Cradle. So, I mean, that's pretty sick. I do like seeing that here, along with the other creature tutors and demonic tutor. That's sweet. Looks like kind of low on the interaction. It's just focused on the tree farm plan and just trying to do tree farm stuff, I feel like. I mean, yeah, it has some interaction, but if you're running blue, you kind of have to in order to keep it going outside of the semi-blue decks. So, and that deck kind of gives me a headache anyway, so I'm glad that I haven't seen it yet. But, Orm's Chant, again, silence effect, cool. Let's see. Artifacts, low on the artifact count. There's the Candelabra. Agatha's Soul Cauldron, which I think is a really strong piece. Being, especially if you're doing like Hazel's stuff anyway, and like some extra graveyard hate. Imposter Mech, I've really been high on this card in decks that have access to running it. So it's just a really good piece right now. Enchantment wise, yeah, Cradle Strategy, Thrasios, like lower it, Devoted Druid stuff, Fish, Rhystic, Mother Tithe, all you can ask for. So that's awesome. Survival also kind of acting as a combo piece for the Hazel's line. And again, it's the tree farm stuff that you see, the Gaia's Cradle, the Deserted Temple, Talon Gates. Where's the... Are they not on Manamo? It looks like they aren't on Manamo, which is interesting. Huh. I guess maybe when you kind of add that fourth color, though, to it, might be you got to make some cuts somewhere. So maybe just running the Deserted Temple is enough, along with the Candelabra and even the Derevi mill line to be able to untap your lands, too. But yeah, I think this is cool. I think that this is going to give a lot more life to TNT and really help push this deck back up into like really top spots, especially since this is kind of proven to be these Turbo Cradle decks are performing exceptionally well right now. So congratulations on 9th place with a record of 3-1-2. All right, in 8th place, we have Nathaniel Schick on Terra. This is cool because you don't see a lot of Terra lists popping up at the big events. It's done well at a lot of like smaller events, and I think is still a very strong 5-color commander. So let's kind of take a look and see what they are doing with Terra here. This is kind of a trend I have noticed in this deck in particular. It's trying to get a bunch of fast mana down with this Tinderwall. I'm assuming probably some Springleaf Drum type stuff because they are on the Rogue Rack. I wonder if maybe we have, we'll see maybe even like the Flare Duplication because we're, between these 3 creatures, you can actually make use of it. Only on the Voice of Victory. So I feel like this is like a almost turbo-y version of Terra where you try to get her out very fast, maybe try to get down. Well, hold up. There's not even a squee here. So not focused on Food Chain. Or the Food Chain might be in it, but just no... I don't know. That one kind of throws me off a little bit because that's what my go-to is. I feel like in a lot of lists I've seen run Terra, like I've seen this version of it and I don't understand it as much. I'm always like inclined to do like obviously the Food Chain breach type stuff, being able to just mill ourselves out and maybe have like Gloom Shrieker in there to recur the Thassa's Oracle off of the Terra ETBs. But let's kind of keep going. Let's see what they are doing. Because it's almost like it's like if they're trying to run Rogue Rack in here, a lot of load the ground mana dorks and creatures, things you can sack like the Tinderwall. I mean, obviously they're on Breach as well. They have the Gamble, the Savine, so that's a clear indication of it. A lot of tutors. Maybe they're just trying to make it a very turbo-y build of Terra rather than just going more into the mid-range of it, which I think is fine. You have all these low to the ground creatures to make better use of things like the Diabolic Intent, Culling Ritual, and Demonic Council as well, especially if like you're sacrificing your creatures for those things. They all kind of play off one another. Decent on interaction for the most part. We have Manamorphose there as almost a cantrip, but also is adjusting mana or just like mana fixing. Pretty standard. No Orm's Chant or anything like that. This is also why I feel like this is just a turbo build. Like they're on defense grid, slammed a bunch of dorks on your first couple turns, and like these low the ground creatures. I'm not seeing the Springleaf Drum. I was kind of hoping I'd see that, but maybe even just having Rogue Rack to kind of turn on Mox Amber right away, and you have your green source. That's fine. Or you have your red source. Sorry, I was thinking to have myself to get Terra out earlier, and then you have both. But that's cool to see there. Let's look at the enchantments. Yeah, no smothering time. Again, it's just make fast mana and then just pop off is what I feel like this is trying to do, and utilize maybe the commander as more of like, hey, let's feed the graveyard in an effort to fuel our breach lines as opposed to focusing on Terra as the main plan with that. So that's kind of cool. High on the land count for what I would feel like is more of like a turbo-y type deck. Gemstone Mine is kind of interesting. I've seen it kind of pop in and out of either these lists or some other things, but I don't know. It's definitely something to think about, I guess. I don't know. Kind of confuses me. And even seeing like an Overgrown Tomb here, especially in a 5-color list and Watergrave, the only thing I don't know. Maybe just making sure they actually hit more of the appropriate colors of what they're needing. is the biggest thing that I can think of. And then there's City of Traders, even with a high land count. So definitely an interesting Terra build, but it's not that this is an uncommon build for it. I feel like I've seen this one pop up quite a bit. I think that it's not within my scope of what I would do for my own build for this, but obviously it's doing really, really well because they got 8th place at a 150 plus player event. So congratulations, Nathaniel, on a record of 4-2. In 7th place, we have Matthew Wicklin on Arkham Dagson. Okay, so mono blue, like artifact type stuff. This is a deck, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, like, this is a deck that I have not really played that much against or seen all that much. I know Blake, I think, has, or he's seen a lot more of it. So, I am not as well-versed, let's put it that way, on what this list is trying to do. I can tell it's just has a lot of, like, mono blue artifact-type synergies. Probably had... and I haven't gotten down to all of that just yet. Having some kind of flash enabling stuff with the Liberator within this is the Shimmer Mirror. I don't see that in this. Yeah, I'm not saying that in here as a flash enabling thing, but I think that's fine. Same thing, no Valley Flood Caller or anything like that. What I do think is kind of cool, they're utilizing all these mirror as dorks, and I'm sure they can utilize it as fodder for other pieces kind of later on with the Arkham ability, giving creatures haste, probably being able to generate infinite mana into the Fairy Mastermind, and then using something like the Tomb Trawler to be able to put cards from your library back in, or from your graveyard back into your library so you don't end up milling yourself out. That's just kind of what I'm seeing right away. No Walking Ballista though, especially if like it is some kind of like infinite mana sink. But I think that's fine. Let's see. A lot of ways of being able to untap things. Obviously, I think the biggest stuff is going to be in the actual artifacts. So let's kind of keep going. It looks like basically this is get whatever artifact you want, resculpt your hand, potentially draw whatever amount of cards. A lot of interaction and basically your instances only being interaction to kind of continue to do stuff. The dramatic reversal there to be able to continue like doing whatever lines you need by untapping your non-land permanents. And then this is the bread and butter. So, right away, it looks like some stacks effects were on the keys, Agatha's Soul Cauldron. This is cool. Peter Parker's camera. Like, I think that's kind of neat seeing, one of the new cards kind of popping up here, maybe even doubling down on the Arkham triggers, being able to cheat more and more stuff into play. That's awesome. Repurposing Bay kind of acting as an artifact-only birthing pod. Isochron Scepter, obviously, combo piece with Dramatic Reversal. So that's neat. Clock of Omens, shenanigans, being able to like tap and untap things. 1,000-Year Elixir, being able to untap the Arkham Dagson, or also being able to give all your stuff as though it has haste. Shenanigans with Staff of Domination. Making everything an artifact. Yeah, I mean... I think that, and obviously like the Rings of Brightheart is in this, so like this plus like usually Basalt Monolith, I think, and Grim Monolith, I see that one there, I don't see the Basalt, makes infinite colorless mana, so yeah. Utilizing this in conjunction with like something like the One Ring, or any of your other stuff that's going to produce, not just give you card draw, but a lot of mana to pitch a card, untap it, kind of keep drawing out your deck that way too. And again, being able to utilize that with like the Fairy Mastermind stuff to where, or the that other card that can put a card from your graveyard on to the bottom of your library to ensure that you don't actually mill yourself out. That's cool. Lands with just a bunch of different artifact type synergies, or some untapped things like the Manamo being able to untap the Arkham Dagson, and Inventor's Fair being able to get whatever artifact you want off of that. Yeah, I mean, this is just a neat list. This is one that I would actually kind of like to like sit down and learn maybe at some time. I don't know if I'd ever play it, But it's a cool list, and it's something that has kind of continued to pop up at times throughout the past couple months. So it is nice to see like a mono blue list popping up every now and again that isn't just Urza, especially since Urza's kind of fallen out of favor, and I feel like Arkham is the one that's kind of replaced that. So all in all, like, congratulations on 7th place with a record of 4-1-1. In 6th place, we have Zeke Maxwell on Rogthras. So, okay, so we've seen 3 blue farm. This is the first Rogthras that we've seen of this list. So I'm right away, and again, when Blake and I do this, we mean no disrespect to any pilot. From what I can tell right now, it looks like traditional Rogthras lines. I'm almost willing to bet that it's probably, there might be a splash of red, but it's not much. And when I say that, I mean like the gambles and like the Song of Creations and things like that. Probably a flare duplication and deflecting swap for sure, but let's see what they got going for them. Yeah, no red in the creature base whatsoever, which is the common thing that we have seen quite a bit. Utilizing Fairy Mastermind as a combo piece, as well as a Boral Breeze Collar, obviously, and then like Ewit, Spellseeker, Displacer Kitten can be a combo piece at times. It just depends on the composition of the deck. But that Fairy Mastermind being like one of the big things. Clever Impersonator being able to copy whatever it wants to, really. Same thing with Phantasmal Image. Biomancer's Familiar in there to reduce the Thrasios activations, as well as something like Training Grounds and whatnot. The Cloud of Fairies, also a combo piece at times with the Gaea's Cradle and like Snap and Ewit and so on. So let's keep going. They're on the gamble. This is a trend I think I've kind of noticed in the past few weeks. I think some lists have been coming off of the Sylvan Scrying and the Malevolent Rumble, probably honestly as a way to be a little bit faster and making it Malevolent, making sure to hit, you're not filling your graveyard too much, especially if it's like not as heavy in red. The breach lines aren't as big. So, that might be okay there. But yeah, just a common theme that I've been seeing pop up past few weeks with this deck. Let's keep going. Very interactive. Again, even though they're on the gamble, again, they're on the Deflection Swat and the Flare Duplication. Those are pretty much just there because Rograk is there as one of the commanders. But outside of that, very standard, interaction package for Rogthras. Frantic Search being able to technically utilize as a combo piece with Underworld Breach and being able to untap like Gaea's Cradles and things like that for big mana. Super sweet. Artifact-wise, what we've been seeing, again, originally in the original iteration of this deck, I felt like we were only seeing like 7 to 8 artifacts. Now we're seeing upwards to 10 to 13 at times. Choosing to do the One Ring, which I think is kind of interesting, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad call in this. Obviously, Candelabra is there. Training Grounds, Earthcraft, the Growing Rights, all the traditional stuff we were used to seeing within Rogthras. There's the Breach. The Invasion of Ikoria popping up again. I think Dryad Arbor is kind of a land that kind of comes in and out of the deck at times, but it does at least make use of the pieces that you can go like, Green Sun. I think they're on Green Sun. Yeah, they're on Green Sun. They can Green Sun for 0, get Dryad Arbor, and be able to have an additional land their next turn. So I think that's fine. Yeah. I mean, obviously this deck is still continuing to perform very, very well. It's why others like that Tree Farm build, like this deck is kind of the basis for what other decks are trying to do, just as much as like we've had conversations recently on like Blue Farm being the basis of whatever other decks are trying to do as well. So congratulations on 6th place finish with a record of 4-1-1. In 5th place, we have, I'm going to say Levi. And it's literally spelled Leave I. That I should have not even second guessed myself on that one. But they are on Kennen. Let's see what the differences is between, or are, Kentucky and me came out just then, between this list and the one we had just previously seen. I think right away what stands out to me is this person is on the Drift of Phantasms, the High Fae Trickster, and the Subtlety. Those are different right away. Okay, being able to utilize this as like even a piece to like remove a bowmaster off the stack or anything like that. That's cool. But yeah, just a little bit more flash enabling stuff. Drift, obviously, you can utilize this heuristic study, basalt monolith, any of the 3 drops has become a really, really good piece within the deck. Fairy Mastermind, again, is becoming more and more popular, I think, just across the board as a combo piece. Clever Impersonator, like copying like a Smothering Tithe or anything like that with the Fairy and Kennan, just goes infinite, and you're able to win off of that at instant speed as well. Same sorcery package as what we had before. Almost the same instant package, still interactive and whatnot. No force of vigor in this, but pretty close to standard of what Ken's even trying to do anyway. I like the inclusion of Imposter Mech in Kennen, just be able to copy a Bowmaster and just say fuck it, and just being able to do what you need to. Like if everyone else is going to draw cards, more Bowmasters comes down, it's like this is the final Bowmaster, so I think that's fine. High on the copy effects, none of the psychic possession or anything like that, but just the good stuff build of this deck, and it's continuing to prove its worth. It always has been. Kennen is just a really strong deck. 24 lands, I think slightly lower than the previous list we covered for Kennen, but honestly that's fine. Kennen just makes a bunch of mana, draws a bunch of cards, and does a bunch of shit. So it's a good deck. It's a good list. And congratulations, 5th place with a record of 5-0-1. So they must have just barely missed the top 4, and just performed very, very well throughout the event. So congratulations on that. All right, in 4th place we have Zach Wehrmeyer. I'm assuming that's correct. On Zerda, the Dawnwaker. So this is cool. As far as Boros color pairing, I feel like this is the list that we typically see kind of pop up. It's one that I've only played against once, and I'm not super familiar with it, but it is still kind of a cool list to see. So let's kind of take a look and see what they got going on here. So right away, the biggest thing I notice is the stacks between the Draenith, the Aethersworn Canonist, the Magus of the Moon. There's probably going to be a Blood Moon, I'm just going to assume. But having these kind of pieces in there, the Delivery Moogle to get things, basically my understanding of the deck, Wonder Archaic as another stacks piece in a way, my understanding of the deck is this: you make infinite mana with Zerda, and you could do stuff with Staff of Domination, Walking Ballista there, just dump that mana into Walking Ballista if you need to. You could probably dump mana into this to make copies of artifacts. Let me see. What does this thing do? I guess if you make infinite mana and you have this out, you can kind of continue to filter the top cards of your library until you get exactly the piece that you want. Delivery Moogle, being able to go and get the Grim Monolith to combo with the Zerda. Obviously, like Silence effects, Oswald is kind of a birthing pod effect for artifacts again. Sorceries, returning stuff from the graveyard. Jessica's Will, see more cards and more mana, probably some kind of breach line there. Obviously we're in Boros colors, so we don't really have access to like a full counter package, but they are on Red Elemental Blast, Tybalt's Trickery, Deflecting Swat, so that's kind of cool. More like on board kind of interaction with the Soul Partition and the Sword Plowshare and the Pyrokinesis. Only one ritual, but I think that's probably fine. I think that's okay here. Just one silence effect, no Worm's Chain or anything like that. This is the main thing with the deck, is the artifacts. So again, seeing a lot more stacksy pieces like the Grafdigger's Cage, the Conqueror's Flail, Defense Grid, Dampening Sphere, Weathered Runestone. Just a lot of it. Probably Disruptor Flute, maybe. Yeah, I'm not seeing that. But a lot of pieces just to slow the game down, combo off with Zerda, being able to use the Staff of Completion or Staff of Domination as well to just like be able to draw through your deck if you need to. Rings Brightheart, obviously that's a combo piece. If you don't have access to Zerta, you can probably do some grinding station type loops with stuff. Yeah, this is cool. There's the Blood Moon. I knew it. Zerta. I think that it's almost kind of funny because like I think like Boros colors kind of have the two biggest stacks decks being this and Winota, and then obviously outside of that, in our meta we have someone that has played Urza stacks in the past. We have someone that plays Tayam, which I think a lot of people think of that deck as far as stacks go. But it's just cool to see this commander that is not being used as a companion doing well in events and just kind of crushing it here. And I know there's been some other people like Boros Wayne doing really, really well with Zerta. So yeah, this is definitely a cool list, one that I'm not as familiar with, but hopefully people will drop it down in the comments down below and let me know what all I'm missing out on with this. So congratulations on 4th place with a record of 2, 1, and 3. All right, in 3rd place we have Schmandrew Schmeckland. So, yeah, so this is Grant Eklund. I just think it's funny that he has his name as that. On Blue Farm, he's just been jamming this for a while now. So let's kind of take a look and see what he's got going on. Kind of similar to some of the other lists we talked about. No Knuckles there in the 99, but a little bit higher on our red creatures. Seeing the Mayhem Devil, I think that this is here to stay for a while. I think that Mayhem Devil, ever since the Invitational, like everyone's just like, why didn't we think about that before? So I think that that's a piece that's just here to stay in Blue Farm for the foreseeable future. Let's look at the sorceries. Seems good. If we're higher on red, might as well continue to include red stuff. No Jessica's Will, but opting to do the Wheel of Fortune kind of in the same spot. Higher on the instances, which I think is fine. He's even on the Reign of Filth, so again, trying to go in the shell that's a little bit more aggressive, I feel like, with Blue Farm. And it's continuing to put up numbers. Plus, he's just a phenomenal pilot on this. Seeing the offer snapback tech is a more kind of ramp or kind of a pseudo ritual. The flare duplication being in here, again, we're higher on our red creature count, so it kind of makes sense that is also in there. Artifact package 11, probably not worried about the One Ring. Again, a little bit lower than that, including some other type. Probably on the Spire for the exact same reasons I said before, like whenever you have the Esper Sentinel, Jataru, Lotho, Professional Facebreaker, making a bunch of treasures, even Ragavan making all these treasures, like you're probably just going to see it. You're probably going to have this Mox Opal turned on pretty consistently, the Smothering Tithe. Same enchantments we have been seeing with Blue Farm. Or is he on the Spire? He's not on the Spire. Okay, well, and he just threw me for a fucking loop there, and I'm just trying to get ahead of myself. But we are seeing the City of Traders pop up again. In the Blue Farm list, so again, maybe that just kind of speaks to how people are just trying to go a little bit faster with even Blue Farm. So outside of that, congratulations, Grant or Schmant with a record of 3, 2, and 1. Okay, in 2nd place, we have Brock Hansen on Rogthras. Even though from what I get to... hold up. There is some interesting stuff here. So the last list did not have Tezzeret, which I actually think Tezzeret's probably pretty good. You can just play him. He's, I made a comment in our set review for this. I wasn't sure how Tezzeret would fit into every single list, but the lists that are going to take advantage of him, I think, are going to do really, really well. Being able to just -3 right away and go get the Candelabra or an Expedition map or anything like that, solid. Especially for this deck that's trying to focus on getting those pieces in order to get either your Candelabra to untap your lands or getting Gaia's Cradle to just make as much mana as you want. It is a Cradle Farm deck, or a Turbo Cradle deck, whatever you want to call it. So it just makes sense that he's there and he's cheap to play, anything like that. Fairy Mastermind being, it looks like, kind of utilizes the main combo piece here to win at instant speed. So that's what I can kind of tell right away. This Matoya and Vivi. Matoya is one that I feel like we haven't seen a whole lot out of. I think there was some speculation of this card being like really, really good whenever it first got spoiled, and then I just don't think it's like found its place. But having the ability to, whenever you scry or surveil, draw a card, busted with this deck. So, and with it being a 3-drop that's a 1/4, it's out of Bowmaster range, and you just see more cards with it. VV in here, obviously, you can utilize that to just ramp more. And like if you have some kind of loop where you're casting, anything, you can deal a bunch of damage to the table. Born Breeze Caller is obviously another, loop within this. Let's kind of keep going. They are on the Sylvan Scrying, but not on the Malevolent Rumble. They still have Gamble here. Looks like a little bit higher on the interaction than the previous list, and I think that's fine. I think that works, and obviously they did really well with it. They got second place, so you can't really argue it too much. So I think this is I don't know if this is just a meta call or just super spicy. I haven't seen this in any other list for Rogthras just yet, and I could just be uncultured, So the Endstone, I think even we kind of talked about this card with the Lady Octo on our set review for Spider-Man with Yaw, and like being able to like just jam this and then draw more cards whenever you either play a land or cast a spell seems good. Rogthras isn't caring about its life. It just wants to see more cards, make more mana, and just win over the top of anything else through that. So it's cool to see like this high CMC artifact that's going to continue to help you accrue value being played here. And then enchantments, standard enchantment package that we've kind of seen. The only one that and we haven't seen that in the other list today either, was the Song of Creation. But again, that is a card that I feel like kind of comes in and out of this list. Just depends on if you go a little bit heavier into red or not. And so they're on 29 lands. Okay. So, and again, I mean, we see the more common lands within this Monomo, Gaea's Cradle, Deserted Temple, so on. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong in Talon Gates. There's nothing wrong in that. I just think that in this list, we're seeing closer to like 26, 27. It feels a little bit higher on land count, but I mean, obviously that's not wrong for what the deck is trying to do anyway. So, yeah. I actually like that there was a little bit more variance in this list compared to what we have been seeing out of Rogthras, so that was really cool. So congratulations, Brock, on a second place finish with a record of 3-2-1. And in first place, we have Matthew Swaney with Kennen. Okay, let's see if there's any differences. Right away, it looks very similar to the list we just covered for Kennen, with, some more flash enabling stuff. Drift of Phantasms there as an extra tutor. Looks pretty much the same there. Fairy Mastermind within this, being able to utilize that as a combo piece need be. One less sorcery, I think, compared to the previous list. I think the last one was on Fabricate as well. This one opting to just do not instant speed tutors, the direct to battlefield tutors with the transmute as well. Let's look at the instances. I think this is actually a little bit higher on the instances than the previous list, choosing for a little bit more interaction. So I think that's cool. I think that's really, I think that's a solid choice. Just where we're at, I think if you're running blue, you need to be interactive. And Kennen is a really strong deck to kind of balance everything you want to do in the format right now, outside of blue farm. Artifact count, still high. They are also on the Imposter Mech. I think it's just a solid call. What else we got here? Enchantments. This just seems like the no bad cards Kennen list that we're seeing more and more of. I think the only thing that kind of really stands out to me, you don't really see Tarnished Citadel pop up too much in Kennen list, but I mean, why not? Like, oh, well, you either tap it for a colorless or you bolt yourself to get whatever color you need. Kennen doesn't care. Kennen's not running Adnaz or Necropotence, so fuck it. Just run Tarnished Citadel. It's a good card. Yeah, outside of that, I mean, solid list. I mean, Kennen still continues to perform very, very well. So, congratulations, Matthew, for a first place finish with a record of 3-0-3. All right, guys, so that is our top 16 breakdown for this event. And congratulations to everyone that placed in this. And I hope everyone had fun time at this event. From what I was told whenever Blake and I were first told about this event, like the dude that ran it, he fronted all of it and kind of did a lot of this stuff out of pocket. So I'm very impressed that it went from that to being able to be a 150 plus player event. I just think that that's cool. It was one that I really wish we could have gone to, but just with timing and everything, just it made it really difficult to kind of get out and play some events. And even with this upcoming weekend, it's kind of unfortunate Blake's not able to go. But if you are going to be at the cookout this weekend, come hang out with me. Like, I'm going to try and see and meet a bunch of people whenever I can, and just be able to try to hopefully get some good games of CEDH in at this event. And if I scrub out, oh well, fuck it. You can come up and talk to me anyway, and just kind of hang out. Maybe we can jam some games somehow. But other than that, I had nothing else for this today. Remember, we have some big changes that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. We are doing the Patreon stuff now. We're still doing Discord. Our Discord, join that. It's still free. Patrons, if you become a paid patron, we're gonna have some channel updates within that as well, and some special exclusive things if you become a patron and join the Discord. Hopefully some good things in the works, and those are things that we're going to be very transparent and open with you guys on as they come up. So other than that, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown for today. I hope I did a better job. I'm hoping that maybe I won't be on my own next time, but we'll just see what happens. So I hope you all take care for today. Go join Criticals League, subscribe to us, like and comment, and as always, go play some CEDH.